This hour, we are happy to introduce the session called Do You Have What It Takes to Survive? Our speakers today are Cynthia Cologne, Tony Scribner, who's not with us, Andrew Stricker, and Barbara Truman. Dr. Cynthia Cologne, aka Lyra Lobo, or me, is a professor, author, researcher with 20 years of experience in developing virtual environments and teaching. In 2010, Andy Stricker, Mike McCrocklin, and Cynthia Cologne won the first 2010 $25,000 grand prize in the Federal Virtual World Challenge for the Mars Expedition Strategy Challenge. Dr. Andrew Stricker serves Air University by helping to design, develop, and implement advanced and emerging learning technologies into Air Force educational and professional military education programs. He served as Associate Provost for Vanderbilt University. Dr. Barbara Truman serves as the Strategic Advisor for Immersive Learning and Collaboration in the University of Central Florida's Institute for Simulation and Training in Orlando. She is also Community Manager for the Moses Project, and Lyra Lobo is also a member of the Moses Project. Welcome all. Let's begin the session. Now, the good news is it's great to be both moderator and the person driving. As you can see from this slide, I'm going to kick us off and then turn the mic over to Spinoza, and that's Andy Stricker. And what you see here is an Arctic simulation, and this is a game that stems from several sources, which I'm going to let Andy and Barbara talk about. But as a precursor, I wanted to note that this is from a Special Forces game. And the goal is not necessarily to win the first time you play, which is always startling for gamers, right? Because our mission, our raison d'etre, is to win, right? So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Secondly, you do win 2 certificates. Hopefully, if you did win, if you survived and your team survived, you'd get this certificate, right? And you'll notice it says Antarctic certified. It has the Air University Metaverse certificate seal. However, this is what most of us get, okay? And of course, it looks like I crashed and burned. Now, the good news is I'm kind of a quirky individual, as many of you know, and I don't mind crashing and burning. In fact, did you notice what's sitting around me here on the couch? And I put a few on the table just in case you couldn't see. I have my handy Crisco can. It has so many uses, right? And of course, you must have chocolate bars on any excursion when you crash land in the Antarctic. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of liquor. And then, of course, I have an adult beverage in the other hand. And then some steel wool. These are only 4 of the 12 items that rest before us when we crash and we're trying to figure out what do we need and what order should these objects go in, as far as their priority for our survival as a group, not just as individuals. Well, at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Andy Stricker, who's the mastermind and leader of our game.
Thank you, Lyra. I'm just always very honored to be a part of these conferences and to share the work that's really collaboratively produced on behalf of the Air University, United States Air Force. We benefit so much from the OpenSimulator community and the great ideals and entrepreneurship that all of you represent in your efforts, and we benefit from that. The simulation that Cynthia Lyra Lobo has described is one of many, but it's a recent effort to take the work from Special Forces on survival training and link it into our grid for Air University, and everything that the participants do to prioritize how they would survive as a small team gets fed into our data analytics that we have on our enterprise presence on the cloud. So one of the things that we've offered for this conference is people to come out and try this sim, which some of you have, and after this presentation to actually come back and see the data that's been collected from the participants a few days ago and see how we organize that in our dashboards. The simulation basically is supporting the work of Dave Logan's and research on his model of leadership. In our culture, the leadership model supports helping our officers go from a very lone wolf way of doing things to working well in small teams and developing their problem-solving abilities in complex situations. I'm gonna ask delightful Barbara to highlight a little bit about her experiences with the features here in the simulation. Barbara?
Thank you, Spinoza, and welcome everyone. It's an honor to be here, and it's really exciting to participate in this survival simulation. Many of these types of simulations are performed in order to build teamwork. So for the Air University, how they have incorporated the publication Tribal Leadership to illustrate the concepts so that you get more experiential learning, and all of the applications are using open source software. So looking at how the analytics and the data can then inform the mechanics of the gameplay, how to increase the engagement, how to build greater memories for how people will bond with each other and use that in teamwork that transfers to their other jobs that they do. This is part of what I have observed and enjoyed as a participant. So back to you, Andy.
Oh, thank you. As Barbara shared, everything that's done in this simulation is put into the cloud, and we basically conduct learning analytics to help our students and instructors understand what people have done and give it as feedback to them as part of their in-residence courses at Air University. So as you see in front of you on the visuals, we've taken some creative license to put some of the instructor support tools inside this submarine. And from within the controls, instructors have access to the events in the simulation. They can control some of the features and give feedback to students on the results. We are very excited about the ways that we can get data to flow. The data flows into a learning record store model now that the ADO CoLab has introduced on the learning locker structure. And from that data, it goes into our Amazon cloud that we use now to support these grids from OpenSimulator. We are wanting very much to support also how this data flows across multiple devices. So not only are you able to access the data from within the OpenSimulator itself, but you can actually access it through mobile devices. And we support the exchange of that data across those devices. I'm going to ask you to turn to the next slide. Here is what I was sharing earlier about Dave Logan's work on this leadership model that really is intriguing to us in the Air Force. As I said earlier, we have a culture that prizes the individuality of our officers and what I call the lone wolf approach, where they are expected to be exceptional in all that they do. But we also want them to understand why it matters as part of their leadership identity to work well with others in teams. So much of what they have to do and the kinds of situations they're facing in today's world requires interdependent exchanges of skills and information in small teams. So we want to go from this stage approach where at, say, stage 3, which a lot of our officers excel with personal domination, to be able to understand why it would matter to elevate their skills and abilities to the team levels, where they can take pride in the fact that they can excel with others to accomplish difficult tasks. So we collect data on their leadership profiles as part of this simulation, and we show the impact on their profiles as they gain the experience of working on these kinds of problems together. And we take that as part of our overall feedback to them in the Squadron Officer College program that this simulation was designed for. And all officers in the Air Force go through our college at Air University. And so we have them in residence at a key point, and they're just beginning as an officer at the captain's level to help them develop these types of leadership skills. Barbara, do you want to add anything, or Cynthia?
Well, Barbara, I know you read the Tribal Leadership book, whereas I bought the book and skimmed it. Everyone knows me. I'm the type that has to jump into the experience and work with the technology. And then I have to confess, I'm a role player with like 28 years of game convention experience, right? So I do all the voices and I think about all the characters. And I think about Dr. Smith from Lost in Space and how he's out for himself. And when we think about collaborative work, that sounds all great until you're stranded, you want to survive, your self-preservation kicks in, you're cold, you're hungry, and there's only 4 chocolate bars, right? Not a lot of food units, that's the only food unit. And then, of course, you don't know when will rescue come, when will an alert go out, how long do we have, and how will we get warm, and how do we, how do we negotiate all of this? All of a sudden, polite society starts to step aside. And one of the values of doing developing games and simulations over at Air University is they think about very deep problems. And they're also trying to build Renaissance thinkers. And that's where I flourish, because I love thinking way outside the box and taking quirky perspectives and wondering about where we're going with technology and society. So we integrate data analytics, we integrate voice communications. Andy's been working on the Alexa Echo to offer a tool for instructors to be able to interface with the dashboard in the future. So we're trying to think about hands-free and accessibility and lots of different issues coming to play. Barbara, over to you.
Thanks. And I would add that trying to track the group dynamics, both through the system and while we observe what people are saying, how they're interacting with their avatars, how we get to that stage of dialogue with each other. Because this is how we observe when people repeat playing the game, if they are advancing in terms of tribal leadership.
I don't know if
practice is good.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Well, as you can see, Lear has shown the visual that it gives in one of our dashboards that we use with our simulations. And what's really interesting I'd like to share is that we've been able to take our server-side scripts on the cloud and use them to support the data flow, not only with our OpenSim simulations, but also with our Unity simulation. So we're using the exact same architecture to have the data go into the learning record store and from there into our dashboards. And we're so excited about this because what it represents is we can tab, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, we can tab across the various learning simulations and get instantaneous data feedback to the instructors. And so this to us gives us tremendous visibility into the kinds of experiential-based scenarios and what the benefits are of these simulations for our students. It's kind of a fascinating world that we're moving into, as Cynthia also shared with these devices. We've been working with Raspberry Pi and the Alexa devices, and anything we can do to give us ways to integrate physical and virtual learning spaces. And whether we're sitting in a classroom or we're out in a field exercise or we're away from our formal school structures and programs, we've got an exciting architecture that really offers us in the Air Force a way to learn almost anywhere and any place around the globe.
Turn it back Andy, over. Sure. You bridge also with OpenEdX and Columbia University, and also, what does Kyogi mean again for our audience?
Well, that's a combination of Japanese concepts of doctrine and games. And so what we do is we want to make sure that the things that we're helping our officers to understand about strategies and critical thinking that's so important in air doctrine, people understand that you can really have the opportunity to exercise your skills and test your knowledge through these kinds of simulations. And we take it very seriously. So Kyogi was a way that we could combine those concepts into a word that our officers could actually recall. They do. They actually like the word Kyogi. And so we refer to our whole approach with that use of a Japanese term. So thank you for asking.
Well, as we wrap up here, one of the things I love about working with this group, and by the way, they're so open. The hypergrid is open. We invite you to come out and join us on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time for our next, we'll do a mini game, but we'll be looking at the analytics as well. And what happens is a lot of people don't come because they're like, well, I don't play games, or I don't play games well. Well, this one's called Survival, and we're all playing it, right? Every day. We just don't crash land in the Antarctic while we're doing it. But on another note, when we did the Mars expedition, Andy named the Deep Space Explorer we had the Huffman Prairie Red Lion. And I kept wondering, where's the red lion coming from? And it was a wonderful story from the 1930s of the Gilmore lion, a lion cub that used to fly with the pilot. And so he looks for these little stories and does this little wrap-up, coordinating all of this content. So I think this is just part of the magic of what we're doing here is there's all these little hidden gems. Anyway, check with us. Let us know if you want to come out. We meet every Thursday, Barbara, Andy, and I, to work on our research and our games, and with Tony Scribner, who's our mastermind and keeps us focused. And we want to thank the Air University and Squadron Officer College for opening up their facilities to us and to the OSCC community. We'd also like to give a shout out for our last note to Krista Lopez, to the core developers, to UBIT, to everyone who's supported us, because we are fans of your content and we've made a 5-year commitment to use it. So we're hoping to see great things and to be part of that process. Thank you, everyone. Now I'll move back to my moderator role, back to the voice. And thank you, Tony, Andy, and Barbara, for a terrific presentation. As a reminder to our audience, you can see what's coming up on the conference schedule at conference.opensimulator.org. Following this session at 11 a.m. will be the Hypergrid Safari at #OSCC16. You're going to be moving to the Expo 2 region along with the sponsor and crowdfunder booths. And we're going to be, I think it's in the northeast corner. Please look for the corner where the Hypergrid Safari is going to be meeting. And I want to thank everyone for attending, and many thanks to our speakers and the audience. Have a great conference. Bye-bye.